What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 game development live stream where we're working back on our Deck Knight project, a game built from scratch. Of course, using Unreal Engine 5, C++ blueprints, the gameplay ability system plugin, and all of that good stuff. So today we're going to be more focused on design work. We're going to take a break from the damage pipeline stuff and status effects and stuff like that. I kind of want to lock into some of the cards and how I kind of want them to work. So I want to kind of create a section here for that to serve that purpose. So we should be able to copy pasta here. And we'll call this, I think, like, we'll say card types. And we'll start with evasive, because the whole thing came from when I was implementing the fireball evasive card. I'll open up the editor and show you guys. But basically how that was working, how that looked. It was relatively simple, but I want to make sure that the UI has proper implementation, because I'm thinking there needs to be some sort of ability bar. This kind of stuff you see in other type of roguelites. Risk of Rain 2 HUD, for example, I think is a good reference. I was playing a lot of Risk of Rain 2, and I realized how much of Mega Bonk took from it. It's like you have all these, I don't know what they call them in Risk of Rain, but you have those random charms, for lack of a better word, that you can unlock across each run, which might be interesting to try to do, but what I'm kind of referring to is like this ability bar at the bottom right here. I think I want to have something like that as well. But I also kind of want to have like passive ability slots. So you have like an active ability slot, and those can be mapped, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the keyboard, and or gamepad. I guess it could be like left bumper plus gamepad face buttons, or maybe we can have you can unlock like up to 8 or something like that. I don't know, some crazy number. Or maybe up to 5. It would be interesting to try to see what we can try to do. But I'm going to show you. So we have this fireball card. You can't really see it because of where I am on the stream. But if I can activate it now, my dodge is like this fireball thing, like boom, boom, boom. And when I'm this fireball, I also apply burn, which maybe I also want to apply damage, in addition to applying burn. But that's kind of the idea. Like I want to have like some sort of ability bar somewhere, and I'm thinking like where I need to stack things on the UI. I kind of want to draw that out today as well. At least do some sort of start of a mock-up using things like Risk of Rain as like as a reference. Maybe we can look at Mega Bonk too. Not a good example, too small. This is good. Oh, that's from a YouTube video. Cool. No. Can I please just get an image of the UI? It seems like an impossible task. Say UI. Please don't be tiny. Manage a new tab. Yeah. So you got the health up here. You also have everything's more or less passive in Mega Bonk. You have your tomes and you have your weapons and stuff like that, and then as you're unlocking, again, I don't remember what they're called exactly, but like some sort of charms. I think they're on the bottom. You have your health bar up here. You have your time. You have all these other things at the top, and level, of course. So I'm thinking health should be in the top left as well. I want to avoid having the health bar on the bottom. So I'll have to move that, and I'll probably have to make the health bar bigger, and also these card resources, the circles, probably bigger as well. I think that won't hurt to make them a bit bigger. If I make it a new editor window, it's still full screen, right? I want to go to the properties. I just want to see what this looks like in a typical resolution here. That's typically what it would look like in most people's cases. Non-widescreen things. Whoops. Not what I wanted. Does I not save that? That's annoying. Always center. There you go. So that's typically what people will see. And so I need to figure. Oh, I forgot in my level blueprint, I tell it to automatically go full screen, I think, right? Load. That's it. So I gotta figure out how this is gonna look in general. So I want to make sure, again, where the cards are is readable, where your deck is readable. And I'm wondering how this could work an interesting way, I guess is the best way of saying it. So my first thought, and let's go back to the drawing board here. So we'll say ability. I guess I'll call this like ability slots or card types and ability slots, maybe is the best way of saying it. Any tips to optimize a heavy function that is required for one of my systems to optimize it? It's called every half a second causes hitching when it gets called if there are a lot of actors. I mean, I guess it just depends on what the function is doing. Is there a way to spread the work over multiple frames or something of that sort? I guess technically what you could do is like you can capture all the actors that you need to do it across and, you know, split them into groups. So split them into 5 groups and then on each tick, iterate over each of those groups. So those things happen over a course of a set of frames. There is, I believe, I'm assuming you're doing blueprint. So if you're doing blueprint, I would say move it to C++ first to see what kind of benefits you get. But let me open up literally any blueprint. Because I believe on 5.7, I'm not sure which one you're running on. I think I'm on 5.7. They introduce delay till next frame. Yeah, so you have a helper function delay till next frame. So what you can do is, you know, potentially, you know, get all of your actors and split them into chunks, and then put those chunks as groups and iterate over each one every frame. So first frame you do the first 10 or however many. Next frame you do the next until they're all done, and then when they're all done, I guess, you know, reset the timer, do it again. So it might be difficult. Also, I'm worried I won't have access to some of the data. Well, if you're doing something in C++, you'll definitely have access to all the data. So if the concern is having that information from C++ accessed into blueprints, you also have full control over that. It just depends on the C++ implementation, honestly. So you can expose whatever you kind of want. It just depends if you're making it a subsystem, if it's going to exist in a controller or in a character or in an actor or component. Should all be doable, relatively speaking. So card types and ability slots. So we're going to say ability slots. So we're going to say active ability slots. I want to say evasive ability slot. Passive ability slot. Slots. So I'm thinking I want to have multiple passive ability slots and multiple active ability slots that are all kind of linked to attributes and things like that. I wonder if I can just write it into TypeScript to make it clearer. Maybe sticky notes too. So active ability slots are mapped to player inputs, keyboard 1 through 4 or 1 through X, variable amounts of active ability slots, aim for 5. And I want you to be able to unlock more ability slots as part of the meta progression as you're going through completing the game. Could be something you spec into so you can have more ability slots. Just kind of curious how they will need to work. But I'm gonna fuck around and find out. So keyboard num 1 through 5. Controls, we'll say right bumper, say R3 for like the last one or something like that. Because I also gotta see, like, in general, like, do I want to have, because LT and RT are what are like switching between these cards, you know? And then left bumper is some sort of block that I don't really have the animations for. And then right bumper is relatively free, and you know, R3 doesn't really do anything. So maybe R3 could be like an ability slot control. I just don't know if left trigger, right trigger is the best option, or if it should be left bumper, right bumper, and LT becomes block. That's one I'm not super duper confident on. What do you guys think? But you know, see. So we have active ability slots or match player inputs. What could I say? So ability slot availability, availability. Sometimes I don't know how I'm spelling things half the time. Ability slot availability. Map to attributes. So I'll probably have to make an ability attribute set for this. For all ability slots, probably. Because I want to have multiple passive ability slots. Map the attributes. So current num slots plus max num slots draw UI drawing max maybe also maybe like the guess the max number, like you have a max of 3 that you can unlock, and then after 3 you can unlock a 4th or something like that. Well, we'll have to see how we want to actually draw that. So draw UI showing max num slots, unavailable slots are locked, data out, the progression. I think that's enough to understand. Yeah, the evasive ability slot I think is going to be much simpler. Where where I only want there to really be one slot. I don't want you to have multiple evasive abilities. I only really want there to be, whatever the base one is, which is this roll, or a fireball one. Like it can only be one or the other. That's not really what I mean. Only one can be active at one time. So if you have a few cards in your deck that are augmenting your evasive one, you can override them, and you be the fireball, and then you activate one that you turn into something else, or blah blah blah. So that should be pretty straightforward. So only ever one evasive ability slot. Input mapping, so keyboard will be control, space button right, B button on Xbox at least. I don't know if there needs to be any sort of like ultimate ability slot. I don't want to treat it like a MOBA or anything like that. But I really want to see how maybe potentially cards can synergize, I guess, at some point. And then passive ability slots, very, very similar to active ability slots, except there's no mapped inputs, so start with that. Passive ability slots are not mapped, but some variable amounts of passive ability slots. Aim for, maybe we could say like 8 or something. Start with 2. Keyboard controls, so there's nothing with controls. So passive slot availability mapped to attributes, current num slots, max num slots, all that good stuff. Yeah. So I think that makes sense. Like I'm wondering if there needs to be more than that. Like can passive abilities be something that's that's always active? I'll need to really define what a passive card is, because like I like the idea of trap cards that lay dormant until an action happens. So maybe those are like a subset of passive cards, and they take up a passive ability slot, so they wait until the thing happens, and so it'll be locked into that slot, and you'll be forced to overwrite it if you want to use a different one. I kind of want to play with also mocking up what the UI can look like, because again, I don't like the health bar being on the bottom. I feel like the cards need to be in the middle. To me, that makes sense. We can look at something like Slay the Spire UI. I like this. Okay, I'll just zoom in. You get the idea. So I like that the cards are there and they're kind of laid out in front of you. But we need space for where we'll show your active abilities. Your passives and your evasive. And I'm just kind of curious how, if it's even possible, like how do we allow you to remember which ones you kind of have? Because like the thing with Slay the Spire, for example, right? Like you can see what card, and as soon as you activate it, the card does its thing. With our game, activating the card grants it into that ability slot, and then you can use it whenever you want. But how often will you forget what you have slotted there, and how important is that information to have at the ready? That I'm uncertain of. But let's copy some HUDs in. We might already have some references. Here's some HUD stuff, so let's just paste some HUD stuff. Bonk. Curious if you guys have any other references for some HUDs that we should maybe look at. I know my friend Billy mentioned the word World of Warcraft. Let me find this message here. I think I might have pasted it somewhere actually in here, right? Yeah, it's already here. So again, like in World of Warcraft, you have things slotted in and you kind of know what it does. So maybe I should trust the player. And maybe there's some like alternate menu that you can open that shows you everything that's active and stuff like that. Can show all the details or something if you really need to know it at that time. Maybe. And yeah, this is a good reference to how the cards could look. I want to make sure that an ability card is clear, that it's an ability card. What kind of RPG are you trying to make, though? I'm not really trying to make an RPG, I guess. Let me send a video. Hopefully. I'll explain it, of course. You can check that out for full details and everything, but high level, what I'm trying to do, like I want to make typical action kind of roguelike kind of game, Hades-esque, but the abilities that you have are granted via cards, and so you have a deck building element where you collect, upgrade, and use cards within your deck to grant yourself active abilities, passive abilities, trap cards, summons, and also the enemy AIs as you're fighting waves of enemies. Those enemies can also use cards. How I'm kind of splitting it in my mind is You have the overworld kind of gameplay where you're actually just some guy playing a card game in card shops and playing in tournaments and stuff like that. You're fighting against these AI opponents that are these other people playing the card game. But in the meta level, in the second to second gameplay, you're playing as like the kind of card character guy. So I try to make that connection of like Yu-Gi-Oh! With Dark Magician. You have a connection, but you're playing as this guy. This is within the card game that's been being played. And so as you're fighting waves of enemies, like each opponent has themes and cards that they can play. And so they can play cards that buff their enemies or spawn new guys or debuff you or make it so that you can't play certain cards and you have to like negate that with your own cards and stuff like that. I hope it's kind of hard to explain because I don't really have much to showcase it. But that's the basic idea. Hey, Stevie Ray John, how you doing? How you doing? Peepers Neepers, hey. And Eek, EQ, what's up? Thanks for popping in, guys. Oh, thanks for the raid, 23, goddamn. Appreciate the raid, hey everybody. So we're doing kind of high-level design work. So we're really working within FigJam. Trying to outline some HUD elements we want to try to rework, and I want to start planning out what our ability slots will be that the cards will inject into. Yeah, I'm happy you rated. I'm glad I'm on too. Today was tiring, but we find the energy to do it. So yeah, we're working on what these active ability slots are, what our evasive ability slot is, what our passive ability slots are, and I kind of want to map out what the base UI is going to look like. Because, in the main game, I'll show you the HUD as it is right now, which is not final, of course, but, on the bottom right, you have the cards that you can activate. So I have this Fireball card where you activate it and it overrides your dodge ability. So then you become a ball of flames that then if you overlap with enemies, you can burn them. And it lasts X amount of time before you turn into this normal roll again. And the roll is like any other roll. Ability slot sounds like something a gas user would say. That's exactly what we're using. So definitely I am a gas user. So yeah, we have this like evasive ability slot that you can override with whatever card that you might have that is that type of card. And then we would have active ability slots and passive ability slots. And I want it to kind of function and visually look like a mix of a couple things. Like you have, of course, World of Warcraft, you have your active ability slots, your item slots, and things like that. I want it to look pretty similar to that, except, it's not going to be that many options. We want to, kind of constrain the player in that way so they can kind of construct the deck and make choices along the way. But, we want to take elements like Slay the Spire, so I'd rather have the cards kind of splayed out in front of you in a way that's readable. You can kind of know exactly what it's doing, and you can just kind of cycle through those cards, kind of like you can now with the left and right trigger. You can kind of pop them up. There's no information about them, but more or less what it's trying to do. And yeah, just in case it was missed, this is my first devlog about the project. I kind of go into detail about all the inspirations. Because you obviously have things like Hades, you have Slay the Spire, you have Risk of Rain. I want to like mix in elements of things like Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. I kind of mentioned in the video, but yeah, I've kind of gotten back into Pokemon card collecting again. I think like anybody else in the 90s, like myself, you kind of grew up collecting them. But through TikTok, I kind of found inspiration again, watching people rip open packs, open up ETBs, try to chase gold cards and SIRs and stuff like that. So I think it would be pretty cool to have that element in this type of game where, as you're, because again, the high meta level is, you're playing a card game. Will it have roguelike elements in it? Yeah, that's pretty much the goal. Where, you try to go from game store, card store through these tournaments, and all the enemies get progressively harder, and so you have to lose, gain those resources, use those resources to buy new cards, upgrade new cards, give yourself more active or passive ability slots. Use them to maybe buff your character, so you can maybe buy like attribute points or something to improve some things. Maybe you can upgrade certain things, like what type of status effects you can employ and things like that. Right now we're dealing with a basic sword character. I don't know if we're going to have different archetypes. I think so, but no, I'm only 1 or 2 people. You can't really do too much. I know you have your basics attacks that just deal damage, So you can, smack. And then you have a special hold that doesn't do anything right now, but just visually it's there. You should have a jump attack, yeah, like that. And you have your evasive attack, and you kind of go from there. Will there be a player home, fishing game, and a petable dog? Good question. Probably not. I like that. Again, growing up with Yu-Gi-Oh, I like the idea of you have a card shop, like your grandfather or someone owns a card shop, and that's like your home base that you can always kind of come back to. But you just kind of go from card shop to card shop, fighting against opponents. And like Yu-Gi-Oh and like Pokemon, each opponent has their own theme, and it could be like a fire theme, ice theme. It could be flying enemies only, and with those themes, you have those different cards that they can activate. They challenge you in different ways, and it kind of makes you try different decks out against different enemies and kind of go from there. At least that's the idea. I don't know what it's going to look like in the end. Fingers crossed, but that's the high level thing. And I've been getting pretty good feedback from the proposal in that video, so I'm pretty hyped. Hope it sounds interesting for you guys, so you can kind of see the journey along the way. So yeah, going back to the HUD. I want to take from Mega Bonk, of course. I want to move the health bar to the top left, and just so I can give more space on the bottom. I just don't know where it would be best to put the active ability slots and the passive slots and stuff like that. And that's why I kind of want to map out and kind of doodle draw here as well. So we have some space to doodle draw. And this is some mock-up of cards that I found online. It would be interesting to make sure that the cards are readable. Oh, they are. They moved Profiler to which Profiler? Are you talking about the what's the word? This trace? Like this thing? Unreal Insights? I forgot the name. Do you think you need to be able to code to make this level complex gameplay, or can you get away with blueprints? Because I'm using the gameplay ability system by default, without extensive plugins, you do need to use some C++ to do some things. So I would say, doing C++ and knowing C++ will definitely help. Just because you can make things subsystems, and you can always pull from other plugins and things like that. But for example, like I have this debug hub that I use with IamGUI, which is also a plugin, and I use it for like damage pipeline stuff that I've been obsessed with recently. So you can track things about damage, and this is all in code. So if I hit him a few times, I do some damage. I check the damage type. I check for physical. I have all this data for all the hits that had just happened. And as I hit them, more information's here. I got information if it was like, I kind of shrunk some stuff, but you get target info, you get instigator info, you get context data to see if it was critical, if it was over time. So for example, I have cards that apply crit from burning, and then card 2 deals critical damage. So you'll see as I'm dealing those damages, you'll see that things are critical. You see all the modifiers here that critical deals damage twice. And then it also lets me simulate the damage again. So I can just hit him and hit him and he dies. So this kind of level of complexity, I would say no. Blueprints only, probably not a good idea. Is it doable? Yes. I think it'll just be a lot of a lot of housekeeping and just keeping it organized. So yeah, back to the UI. So I should be able to doodle draw, right? So this is gonna be gross. Forgive me, but yeah, this is gonna be. Oh my god, I'm using a mouse cursor. So that's gonna be like our health. Can I move this drawing part? Yeah, I can. There's one thing I'm not sure either. If you see above the health bar on the bottom left, there's these circles. Those are the resources that you use to activate these cards. And so you gain these things passively, but as you're dealing damage, as you're killing enemies, as you're doing cool stuff, you get more of these to then spend. And it's like a spender, what's the word? Builder spender kind of system. So some cards will be worth 1, some will be 2. There might be big ones that are worth 5, and you gotta make sure you kind of pull those resources together in order to activate them in a timely way. So that needs to be included. I don't know if I really need this like character face as part of the HUD, but we'll keep it for now. So I don't know if the circle should stay above or below. One thing at a time. Let's just doodle. I lock this in place. I don't use Fig Jam as often as I should. I'm always like kind of jumping between Myro and this stuff. Hey, Dark Hill Interactive. Hey, I'm also an Unreal game developer. That's awesome. How long you been working with Unreal? Let's draw some shape. I guess I don't really need to hand draw this shit, right? I can draw circles. A way to change the color of this thing? Here. It's yellow, right? Oh. Circle, 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 up. So this is our card resources. I probably should opt into this. So you make this red. Good enough. Craning, Craning, no. If you improve graphics, you should learn coding. Just write health like this, right? More or less, that's kind of what we have, except it's above. I don't know if it should be above or below. Maybe it makes sense to keep it above. We'll just leave it like that right now. And I'll just write another text. Card resources. Oh. Something. Bold it, make it white. That seems fine. So, first part of the HUD. And then I wonder if I can just like select. Let me just grab that. Something. Oh, Lord. And yeah, the number of cards that you have, I guess it's also variable. Is there a limitation on what blueprints can do? Like, is there some kind of threshold where learning to code becomes worth all of the effort? I mean, there is some very low level stuff only available in C++, but it really depends on what you're trying to do, what plugins you're kind of working with. Because again, if you're working with the gameplay ability system, there's just again, there's plugins for you to do this stuff within blueprints, but a lot of the nitty gritty is in code. like damage executions, how you define attributes. Some of the multiplayer related code is in there, but out of the box, outside of that, it's very blueprint friendly. But like learning to code, I think is always worth it if you're a designer. If not only to be able to communicate with engineers when you have to, if you're working on a big project. I've found it very, very useful at my job to know a little bit about coding, so I can just explain what I need as a designer. Like, hey, I need this kind of variable. I need a defined here. I need it to work like this. I need these parameters exposed that do these things that are clamped in these ways. This is why. And of course, if there's no engineer available, do what I can within Blueprints, because at that point, if you know how to do something in Blueprints, you should be able to kind of know how to do it in C++. It's just the same kind of naming's a little bit different, and you just need to kind of become familiar with the Blueprint syntax and how it translates back into code. And of course, you have things like performance down the line. So again, it depends on the scale of your game, what you're trying to do, and where you can save milliseconds at that point. Obviously, in most cases, bottleneck is GPU related, not much logic related, unless you're doing some crazy shit. So it like anything else in the world, it's dependent on what you're trying to do, honestly. No worries, Cranny. I'm curious what you guys think. So, just for the sake of having a set of cards here, like I'm wondering how it should look when you have the cards, because I'm right-handed, and I remember when I was when you play cards, when you play Magic the Gathering or anything, typically you keep the cards in your dominant hand. I don't know how it is for left-handed people, but I don't know if it makes sense to keep the cards on the right hand, or allow left-hand people to switch the x-axis so that the cards are on the left and the ability bars and passive stuff's on the right-hand side. For me, I've reached the BP limit. I am trying to move this heavy function to C++ at the moment because it's causing 20 frames per second drop every call, because when it gets called, it's causing hitching. Yeah, if you're still getting hitches when you're moving it to C++, then you really should reconsider what you're doing. As you said, you're adjusting stuff with the collision, so it could be complicated things. Because maybe you need to change the tick group as well. That would help. I just realized my alerts haven't been going, so that's why I didn't see the raid. So sorry for that, Stevie Redrawn. Turning Cog and Peeper Neepers, thank you for the follows here on Twitch. It's much appreciated. We try to stream every Tuesday, Thursday. Around this time, I'm in Poland, so there's some time difference there. Dark Hale Interactive, thanks for the subscription there on YouTube, much appreciated. Yeah, maybe consider making it like a subsystem that handles all this stuff rather than the component. Like, is this component only on the player? Like, I'm not sure what a lot of questions that I don't know the answers to with that, but. I wonder if this is what like your hand should look like. Like, I do enjoy how it's arced in Slay the Spire, and you can have multiples and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if could work something similar. But for now, that's kind of what I'm thinking. So we got all that. Then I think, I don't know how best to do it. Maybe I can just grab a screenshot of this thing as my ability bar. you got health and card resources, and then you have like maybe isolated is the evasive one. I think there was a good example of like an evade icon somewhere. Was it in Risk of Rain? Yeah. Let me open this image and get a all of it. No. But this. It's kind of a sprinty thing, but whatever. It looks kind of like a dodge. I'm sure I can find proper icons online. I'm sure. Does anyone have any resources for that where I can get some like placeholder icons and stuff like that? I'm just gonna grab this, drop it in there. So bam, that's my evasive slot. Just write it. Also write active hand or then just for examples. I wonder. Let me also do myself a favor. Should have my main HUD. The component is on the actor that the player can place. For building crafting system, I do have a subsystem that is running the tick management of each actor component. Okay. And it seems tricky. Just to promote some more stuff. If you're interested, oh, that didn't work. Hold on. Is it going to work if I do it here? No, it doesn't. We have a Discord. Hold on. Cringe. Wow. I think just saying the term cringe is cringy too. My bad. I think I have to open up Streamlabs here. So I can have CloudBot. No, all the streamer TikToks online are always telling me, you know, I gotta prepare this stuff before I go live. So, oops. Let's try one more time for the homies. Nope. No. CloudBot. Activate CloudBot. Okay. I swear. Oh my god, hold on. This will be the last time. There you go. Hopefully that works. So feel free to join if you aren't already there. To be honest, it's not as bussin' of a Discord server as I hope it is, but there's some people in there, some cool people. So if you feel like you want to share, you want to ask for help or anything like that, definitely check us out. There's also the Unreal Source Discord. Maybe you can get some help there too if you need. But yeah, let's make my HUD hidden for a second. See this out. Me disable messages. Let's take a screenshot of this as my background. I wonder this maybe I can then add it to here. So what is a reasonable size? Let's go until I get to that same scale, like that. Delete that. I can't. It's locked, right? Delete, please. Thank you. If I delete anything I didn't want to. Okay, now send it back. Now we should have a better sense for scale and how this should maybe look. And can I make these transparent? I don't think so. So health, I think, needs to be something like that. Maybe I can grab a screenshot of that little mug of mine. That. Yeah. Thanks, Dylan. Hashtag Discord, everybody in the chat. Of course, no pressure to join. Do what you want to do. Live your life. Let's lock this in place, though. Oh. Wow. So I'll put that here. Something to that effect, and then maybe we can just make something exaggerated like that. To me, that's too big. Get down, maybe like that, and then these guys. And I just maybe something like that. So, and then that could be like kind of like up here. Maybe that's probably better. Of course, it's never going to be 1-to-1. Now, I like side. I feel like the cards should be lower. Like these will be off screen. Maybe I can, for the sake of example, let me this again up here, right? Grab just like the top half. I think I could do better than that. Like that. Oh. No. Like that, right? And so it could be literally something as that, where you can kind of just see how much each one is worth. I definitely would want there to be spacing in between. We'd have to move them over a little bit. Don't know if that's too big or not. There is no spacing in between. Maybe there can be. Maybe it could be actually like overlapped. This could be brought to the front. That. And then these guys could be moved over. That. And that kind of is how the cards look like. And I feel like there's enough space there. And so, like, this kind of card, there should be like some sort of representative icon and the number of card resources that it takes. So let's add some text to that. Say 2. And this be a large? Maybe. Oh, 2, right? So that's 2. This could be 1. This could be also 2. Oh. The next one could be 0. So we could have some free cards that do something. Maybe some could do like healing or something. You get like instant heal of like some percentage or something. And then this could be, this last one could be 3. Right. So like, each of those will have, a special border depending on what they are. They'll have some sort of written text here. Like it could say the name of it, or when it's away, it can have some additional flair to it. Like these borders could change color to indicate what type of card it is. So let me grab a pencil, maybe it could be a marker, and let me change. Can I change the color? All right, let's just assume. Oh, let's assume. That's gross. No. That's good enough. Assume. I draw this like straight line. Yeah. Let's just assume some colors, right? So green is an ability card. Oh wait, what happened? Let's try that again. Some ability card. It's also an ability card, right? Let's assume orange is like a passive. Maybe blue is, maybe this is an item. Or, some item like that, right? Maybe this one is a summon. So you should be able to tell by the card itself as it's kind of slightly faded out by the color, what type of card it could be, right? And let's assume for this mock-up, some things are unlocked. So for sure, based on how everything is looking right now, can I group these? Something like this, but maybe smaller. I'm not sure how I should draw this, but like, there should be some sort of ability bar. and then like a passives section, like here. You know what I mean? Um, I don't. How does Risk of Rain do it? For example, you know, you have stuff pretty minimally down here, and then some icons about sprinting and shit like that. Then you got the health. I don't think anything should be kind of. I don't think I need to skew warp anything. There's also objectives. Maybe there could be objectives or something at the top. We got someone who joined the server. Nice. I like the name. I'm assuming it's an Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference, but well, you know. Not gonna mention it. So yeah, here we got our cards, and yeah. So I think let me draw a shape. When in doubt, draw a shape. It's gonna be black for now. Can I make it slightly opaque? Is opaqueness a thing? But I don't want it to be like a harsh black line. You know what I mean? And maybe like either passives could live up here or on the side or something. Yeah, transparent. Thank you. So transparent ability bar. Streaming for about an hour, and your boy's kind of tired, honestly. We'll have to see how far we get. Let's keep pushing. So let's assume this is a good size, which probably is not. Oh, can I ungroup these things? So this should be brought to the front. Bam. So no, you have your evasive isolated, for example. Let me. It seems to be too big, so like, let's assume this is a good size. So let's just make this slightly smaller. So, for example, that could be what it looks like. So let's just dump that in. So that's our evasive ability. And then, I don't know, there could be some sort of division line. Make it gray for now, like that. Change the shape, of course. So, you know, division line, bam. And then we have like 1, 2, 3, 4 slots, right? So to the front, match the size up. I think that's almost close. Make it a little bit smaller. Well, maybe I can just so like ability 1, 2, 3, 5. So this could be brought in slightly. Let's group these together for a second. Group selection. So maybe that's where the ability stuff can be. So you have your evasive. And then for passives, my ears. Got a new subscriber, Elekananda. Thank you so much for that on YouTube. Appreciate it. Group for a second. Let me grab you. Let me paste that. So I'm thinking maybe something like I don't know how it would maybe need to look. Let me look at Hades real quick because that's also a good reference. Maybe Hades 2 UI. I haven't played the second one. I only played the first one. I have the second Hades. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't had time to play it. Oh yeah, there's the game UI base. This is a good website. Let me also put a link to it so we don't forget. Some people are complaining about the health bar in Hades. For an action game, your eyes should be on the action and not trying to decipher an ornate-looking life bar. To that end, I think it plays it quickly and efficiently. Okay, so yeah, most people seem like they don't care. Of course, let's copy the image, put it in our references. Because this is locked, right? Let me get the game UI base to work. Okay, yeah. So here's the Hades stuff, loading screen, title and setting, HUD and gameplay. So yeah, you got these items on the side, enemy and health, boss health, player vitals, arena. Where's the bones? There's nothing on the bones. Equipped items. Yeah, over here. Could, work like that. Maybe, can I rotate this thing in some way? Prop. Hey, whoops. Where did that thing go? Oh my god. Can I actually, like, crop this out? Rotate it. Yeah, that doesn't really do much for me. Argue, one could argue this is too big. And again, yeah, Slay the Spire, you have this little deck thing. You have the finish cards and end cards. Oh yeah, we can get rid of this player current hand for the time being. Definitely feels like the bottom of the screen is sort of too busy, but maybe that's okay. Let me just copy a new one here. Can rotate it. So that seems good. Now let's scale it down. And maybe a little bit smaller. So something like that maybe could be, you know, all the passives. So I think I said like 8 could be the max. So let's see what 8 looks like. Ah. Oops. So that's already like half. With this UI example, it's 4. Maybe 6 could be the max. And it'll look like that. Or, you know, it could. Whoop. Oh. Maybe it could look like this. Maybe a little bit wider. Maybe it'll smush together. Maybe something like that. That I don't know. That doesn't look too good. But, like in general, I don't know. That seems like too much. So maybe that's too many passives that you can have. Maybe 5 is enough. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 5. Something like that makes more sense. Maybe it makes sense to align that to like here. Like all your stuff is on the left hand side. Your cards are here. Maybe there could be some sort of like representation. Let me just dirtily grab that as an image. Maybe some information there. How many cards are left in your deck? And maybe when there's like, maybe it could be really pushed to the side. And maybe this could be like faded if there's nothing assigned. I feel like it should be a little bit out. I don't know. That seems Game's a bit busy. But let's compare this to Hades. Like, theirs is pretty small. Maybe I don't need those like big ass circles. Maybe it can literally just be a max and you kind but like they fill up and I kind of like that they fill up, but maybe it's not really necessary. Um Maybe the icons are small enough. Here, you would have like maybe they could be smaller. I feel like the cards need to be a good chunk. Maybe this could be slightly smaller. Thing brought up. Open up a little bit more space there. Not sure if this will work well. Like, rotate it underneath that, or maybe it can look like that. Sure. Maybe they could be smaller. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Like that. Like the size of the cards again, I think that's enough. Far. That seems okay. So let me just label things again. Some text. So yeah, this is health bar, of course. Text. White. Gold. Bar resources. Passive ability. Lots. No. Active ability slots. This is evasive ability slot. Oh. Right hand. Back. That I think is okay. I think it's a decent first mock-up. I don't know what you guys think. I definitely feel like these maybe could be brought in a little closer. Good. Crank a little bit. This could be in like that or something like that. And then maybe there could be like the keys. Keyboard diagram. I get simple one. Simple one. Do something stupid. How much time do we have left? We've been going for almost an hour and a half, so we gotta end shortly. I promise. Something like that. White. Go. Something like that, right? So like 1, and then 2, 3, whatever the buttons are. So let me just add those real quick, and then we'll have to continue this next time. I actually like mocking this up. I don't know. I don't know if this was very interesting for you guys, but I think it's pretty fun. That. Doesn't have to be perfect. Do all these at the same time. Five. Hey, Casper, how you doing, man? Yeah, it's going good. It's going good. We're doing some UI mock-ups. I'm curious what you'll think. Let me wrap this up, and you can share your opinions with me when you have the chance. Let me just etch out this one $sign. I could always have just made those smaller before I decided to etch it out, but whatever. together. Bring it down. Let's bring the rest down. So yeah. Let's go. Marker. Bye. Bye. Oh. Bye. Bye. Through. But yeah, this is a mock-up. So, you know, you kind of have what we have, some similarities to what we have right now, right? And I'm trying to do it in a basic 16:9 aspect ratio, 1920 by 1080, where I want to move the health and the card resources up here. Not sure if they should stay up there or if maybe it should be near this ability bar or something. But you have your active ability slots. These are the ones that get keyed into input. That get activated from the card. You have your evasive ability slots. So this is what could, like, a whole separate ability for your dodge and stuff like that. And then on the left-hand panel here, you have your passive ability slots. And then on the right-hand side, you have your hand. And so the selected card is expanded upwards. The other ones would be translucent. Kind of like how they are now. You know, there would be some transparency in them. And potentially some, like, maybe enough overlap in them where you'll kind of still see like the number or something. The number and the color. Just to afford as much space as possible, you know what I mean? And then let's group this together. I'm gonna bring this back. Let me grab all you guys up. Let me group you. For sure, I definitely agree. So let me see. What needs to be to the most front? So I guess I have to go reverse order, right? So bring up front, bring the front, bring the front, bring the front, bring the whoop. Group. Front. Bring. So kind of like that. Just need to be in a straight line like that. And then there's your current hand. It could be dropped a little bit down like that. So there's your current hand. I'm not sure if we would ever... I don't know if we would ever want to have more than 5 cards in a hand, you know what I mean? Like, what could the max be is a different kind of question. Like, do we want the number of cards that you can have in your hand be expansive? I'm not sure. Like, for example, say the Spire, you could have a bunch of cards in your hand if you, depending on how much you're drawing. But again, you know, things are static on screen. You don't need to really show too much. And I'm not too sure if I want it to be dead center. So, you know, for example, let me group this and group this. Like, would I ever want, you know, the hand to be like this? Maybe, like, that could be the case. Like, there's just the concern of, like, how do we make sure they remain readable on what they are at a glance? I don't know if that matters. So for like example, let's squeeze the very edge of these colors in. Should it just be enough to see what the card's worth? And the card. Okay. So yeah, they could occupy this kind of the same space, and they kind of squish more together, and that's okay. Um, I would also need to figure out how to make card selection work on gamepad, or not gamepad, but mouse and keyboard. Maybe shift. That's a good idea. Let me look at Hearthstone real quick. I always forget it. Yeah, it's Hearthstone. Okay, yeah, the cards kind of splayed out like this. Okay, it's kind of tricky. We'll have to keep revisiting this, keep looking at it, iterating with it. So let me know if you have more thoughts offline. So far, I think it's a decent place to start. I kind of like how I'm mocking this up. It kind of gives me a good direction to move in. Because then I wrote down a little bit about what I want for active ability slots, evasive slots, and passive slots, and stuff like that. So we're seeing that kind of represented here. I'll also get some opinions from other people just to see what they think. But I think that's where I'm going to end it for today. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you Peeper Neepers and Turning Cog for the follows. Steve Ray Drawn, thank you for the raid at the beginning there. Thanks to everyone who's been following from YouTube and other places. It's all very, very much appreciated. Just to hit you up with my socials, go to here's my YouTube. Again, feel free to join our Discord and to make sure to follow, make sure to subscribe, make sure to do all that good stuff. And we'll be back probably next week. I'll try to work on some short form videos. In the meanwhile, I'll showcase what we've been working on this week, and we'll continue next week with this mock up and how we want to move forward. So enjoy y'all's weekend. Let's go ahead and raid. Since we have a few of us here, we'll do first Crimson. He's the GOAT. Make sure to send love his way from me. Let's see how many of us can we grab. We got 4, 5, 6, 11 viewers going there. So, 12. Nice. Enjoy your time there. Have a good night, and I'll see you soon.
Breaking things again. Aha. Ha-ha. Yaha. Hold on. I'm gonna go crazy. That's not it. What if we do none? Jevin, thank you for the raid. How's it going? Okay, it's not that, guys. We can confirm that it is not that. What is it then? What is causing our mesh to be moved in... Why is it moving? Why is it causing it to move? What is causing it to move? Is it the prediction? Is it something else? I don't know. I don't know. Thought we were doing the maintenance tasks today.